Is Spike Lee overrated? Should Zion Williamson sit out for the rest of the year? Why do we care about a 10-year-old NBA scandal? The guys get into all that, bring back the best and worst of the league, answer a listener question, talk a little music beef, and more this week on Just Press Play.
Red wasp is after me. Pregnant ladies and little kids better get the hell out of the way, because I am running. I'm like Forrest Gump, dude. I am running. So, the Titanic was the biggest ship on the ocean, but that didn't mean it was unsinkable. All right. I want you each to use ombudsman in a sentence next week. I got one for you. My name is Kevin, the official ombudsman of the Just Press Play podcast. You like apples?
Here we are back with another edition of the Just Press Play podcast, and we're all back for this one. We got LJ and Pops. What's up, guys?
Not much. What's up?
Man, just another day. I got to watch a little bit of, we talked about some award shows recently, and last night was the big one in show business in Hollywood. We had the Oscars, and I had a funny little thought, and well, I saw a little bit of this on Twitter, and then I expounded upon it. But have you ever thought about the Oscars as just humans giving little gold humans out to other humans who pretend to be other humans the best? Have you ever thought about that? The Oscars is hilarious.
No, but
we give out.
Well, isn't that what all sports? You give out little humans to humans that are trying to, especially like little kid sports. They're like trying to learn how to be humans through baseball. So you give them a little human holding a baseball bat.
I think the conundrum I thought was funny was that we give it to other humans pretending to be other people. I don't know. It was just funny to me. Did y'all watch any of the Oscars? Whoa! Did y'all watch any of the Oscars? What'd you think, Pops?
No.
Well, I was excited for the picture of the year because I've seen it.
Many people were not excited about it. I'm with you. I did see it.
Many people were not. The Green Book won the picture of the year. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think Kevin would say that he did. We saw it together. I know a lot of people didn't like it winning, but I certainly did. I enjoyed the movie. I really liked it. I liked Mahershala, right? Am I saying that right? Mahershala.
You just got to go with confidence. You just got to. If you would have said it with confidence, I would have just assumed you were right and LJ was wrong. But LJ sounded confident, so now it's got to be Mahershala.
Let me look it up.
I liked him. I like Viggo Mortensen. I thought his role in there was great. Mahershala with a her.
It's Mahershala.
Yeah.
I was wrong, by the way.
Yeah, but he also, I can't apparently beat. And while I'm talking, I'll bring this up. He beat Spike Lee, the Black Klansman, which I do kind of want to see. I'm not sure what
I heard it's great.
Show is about.
I haven't watched it. I haven't seen it yet,
But let me ask you guys a question about Spike Lee. Spike Lee, to me, and I've not watched all his movies, so let me preface it with that. I've seen probably 2.
Sure.
I think that I don't think he's all he's cracked up to be. My gut tells me a little bit he gets more attention because of his outlandishness and perhaps because of the color of his skin. I don't know. Would y'all say, is he a great movie maker and I'm missing it, or what is?
Well,
what do
I've
you
never
think?
seen a Spike Lee movie I didn't love. I mean, honestly,
really?
Agreed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. What's an okay Spike Lee movie?
Gosh, I can't even remember. I know I've seen Do the Right Thing. I know I've seen that, which I think is one of his better ones.
I think Do the Right Thing was great, and he was way ahead of his time when making it. I mean, that movie was so relevant 10 years, 20 years later.
He got Game with Ray Allen, right? I've seen that. It
Inside
was okay.
Man.
Denzel Washington.
Did
he do Inside Man? That's
Yeah.
not Spike Lee, though, is it? That's Denzel.
Yes, it is. It's a Spike Lee joint.
Is it?
A lot of. I'm kind of with LJ. I think that when you think about it and you start going down the list, like most movies that pop up, it's a Spike Lee joint at the beginning are top or not. I don't know if they're the best movies I've ever seen, but they're really good movies. I enjoy all of them.
Well, and that's right. Exactly what I wanted to ask you. My mind, the jury's out in my mind. I just know he is a little outlandish. He does get a lot of attention. His movies were okay to me. I'm going to try some more of his movies, definitely.
Well, we got to, what we got to do as a podcast is we got to do a movie night where like once a week we'll watch a movie and then eventually we can answer the question of, is Spike Lee overrated? You know what I mean? Like we need to do that.
Okay.
I think that'd be
agree.
Good.
Well, I think where you're going, Dad, and I could see this too, is Spike Lee gets known. He's known for his movie making, but he's also, the the crazy Nick fan, and then he's on the 30 for 30, and then he does extra stuff. And so you just wonder, is he well known because he's a very good movie maker, or is he well known because he's Spike Lee? Sure. And I think it's both. Yeah. He is well known because he's Spike Lee, the Nick fan who sparked Reggie Miller in that run against the Pacers, but he's also Spike Lee, the movie maker who makes really damn good movies. But then he also
he's got that branding too, where you, even if you don't remember the movie, you remember it starting out a Spike Lee joint, which nobody else does. Like he brands himself really well. He stands out for sure.
So yeah, I like Spike Lee, and I think I like LJ's idea. Speaking of, we talked about Green Book. Did you know Mahershala Ali? Did you realize that he was also a D1 point guard at St. Mary's, and he was previously a rapper. He went by the name Prince Ali.
What?
Yeah, I'll put the show notes. Whoa. I found this on YouTube. There's a YouTube video of him as a rapper. And I mean, he's not bad, but he's not great by any means. He's definitely found the right career field for him, but he wasn't
as an actor, man. I'm into that dude. I would love to see him rap.
And he wasn't a bad basketball player either. Like, there was a little highlight clip ESPN put out yesterday, and he was not bad at all.
I think he was a legitimate basketball player.
Pretty tall. How tall is he? Do you know?
6'4".
He seems like 6 something.
Yeah.
And then I was also reading a story about him. Apparently he used to work out at this, what he did for working out, because obviously he's a very fit man and he was a basketball player, but what he did was he was a boxer. And I don't think he actually was a boxer, but that's just what he did for fitness. And after he won the Oscars, someone was like, holy crap, is that guy's famous? So apparently he was going to this boxing ring, and it's so typical because you see him and he doesn't seem like someone who's like real big and boastful or anything. He was just going there and working out, and these people didn't realize that he was a famous actor. He was just, to them, he was just another guy. He seems really cool. And then Sunday,
same way at your gym, they don't recognize that you're the ombudsman of the
exactly. Not yet.
They don't even.
Not yet.
They don't even know.
Right. That
similar kind of thing. Yeah, similar thing.
It's because my humility, really.
Why you're on Mahershala though? Is anybody hotter than him right now?
Well, that's what I was going to say. Sunday night was a hell of a night. I haven't got to see it yet. I was planning on watching it after we recorded.
I had neither.
True Detective season finale was coming out. I bet it. I mean, the season's been great. The lead up was really good, and then he wins. But did you notice, Dad? And since you said you've seen it, he won Best Supporting Actor. I felt like either one of them could have been the supporting or main actor out of him.
I was shocked by that too, because I thought he would. Yeah, they were both lead actors in my mind. I guess Viggo Mortensen was more the lead actor. Did you see who was the guy? Farrelly? Is it Peter Farrelly?
Farrelly, I think.
But that did the movie. You know, he did the movie, and he specifically thanked Viggo Mortensen. He said, without Viggo, this movie doesn't happen. Of course, we needed Mahershala, but he singled out Viggo. And Viggo was great in that movie. There, no question. But yeah, so I guess Viggo was the leading actor.
Well, and I think before the Oscars, I would have said he was the main actor. But I was going to maybe ask LJ this turn. I think I've come to an answer, but I want to get someone a little more educated maybe in the thought process. But LJ, what makes,
which is anybody, but
which anyone can speak up. But LJ, what makes the lead actor? What constitutes that? Because they're both on screen a lot. I mean, is it because Viggo was on screen first, or?
Boy, let me. I'm looking at the rule right now. If you know the answer, go ahead and tell me.
Well, my thought process was the reason maybe Viggo would be it, and I don't know if this is like a rule in cinematic universe or what, but that Viggo had the biggest arc in the movie. He went from the guy who it showed him and his family, and he was kind of a bouncer, a little bit. He was racist, and then you see his growth as a human toward the end. His family still acts a little racist, and he's like, come on now, it's just another human being. And so I think it was his arc as a character maybe makes him the main character, but Ali's character was huge in the movie, so it was hard.
He was, but if you think of it, it starts with Viggo Mortensen, in the club. Anyway, it is more about him now that you're saying that.
So what I'm finding, just for the specific rules, is that there's no official, like, what is a lead versus a supporting actor. That's decided by the Academy, which is oftentimes influenced by people starting campaigns saying, like, I think this person deserves Best Supporting Actor or whatever. So you can kind of try to say, like, okay, so who's in for Best Lead Actor? Do we want to compete against them? Maybe we want to compete in the Best Supporting Actor, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Because the goal is to get as many awards for your production as possible. But as a theater person, I think the answer probably lies mostly in, like, who is the quote unquote protagonist. You can usually name in a story who the story is about, like whose perspective we're in, who we as an audience are supposed to relate to the most. And so that might be their consideration, but it also might be, I don't know who was in the lead category. So it might have been a political play to try to make sure that they get whichever awards they can get or something like that. It's
I guess a lot of the Oscars, there is a part of it that's just you want to try to get the most awards possible. So if Ali's has a better chance at winning supporting actor over main actor, then you'd classify him there.
Yeah. Oh. Right.
I just know when he won that award, I thought, I guess he was the support actor. It made me think a little bit because either one of them I could see.
Me too. It kind of stopped me because I thought it's a lot about him. A lot of people were not very impressed with Green Book winning Best Picture, and I found that interesting. I'm not a savant when it comes to movie making, and I get everything about it at all, but it was odd to me to see so many people dislike Green Book. It was interesting. It seemed like, and I don't know if we want to get into this too much, it seemed like more people of color were not a fan of Green Book, and it seemed like white people did like Green Book more than
and
not.
It might be so. I haven't seen the movie. I have no idea, but the one thing I know about the Green Book is the actual book. Like I know I heard about this thing like 3 years ago about this book that got created to help people travel in the South or across the country, but more or less in the South that are people of color. And so if, Viggo Mortensen is the main character of this story about Black history, like I could see why that could ruffle a feather or two. You know what I mean? Like I could see that upsetting some people. So, because that story, the one thing about that story is you can't tell it without the Black guy, but you can tell it without the white guy. I mean, maybe not that exact story, but like you can talk about this thing without mentioning a white main character, but you can't do it without a Black main character. So that might be a reason that people would get frustrated by the story.
Well, either way, it was good. The Oscars were good. I thought it was really cool seeing Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper perform Shallow on stage.
Yeah.
By the way, it's Bradley Cooper. He's a good actor. I mean, by all accounts, a very attractive man. And by the way, and he can direct movies. And then, by the way, I can sing too. I'm a really good singer too. He's got to have the flaws. So I was thinking about this. Everybody's got you can't be great at everything. So like, what is it about Bradley Cooper? He must like stink all the time. I think he has like awful body odor.
He doesn't trim his toenails.
Yeah, I mean, there's something.
He doesn't trim his toenails.
He's
got bad. He has chronic halitosis all the time.
Like I'm thinking he's just like all the time, just musty as can be. No matter how much deodorant he puts on, there's just a stank that follows him because he is amazing at everything. He was great in the movie. His performance with Lady Gaga, by the way, whew, not only could she sing, she was beautiful the other night. She had that huge diamond on her necklace. That thing was giant. She had a big old rock.
Did you see I saw it was worth $30 million. $30 million.
Oh boy.
Wow.
Yeah, nuts.
Well, I told you about that diamond that I held. I couldn't even imagine having a $30 million
hanging from your neck
in the same building as me.
Yeah. Oh, it was wild. But the Oscars were fun, and now everyone can complain for about 3 days, give or take, and then we'll be over it. But people complain about who didn't and did win and all this. Shout out to
you sound like somebody that works in the news industry. You understand?
It's a cycle. It'll be gone by Wednesday. Just wait. So let's transition over to when we haven't done this in a while, and I kind of want to get back to it. And let's transition to a little bit of best and worst for the week. And I have what I have for my worst. It was going to be my best, and then it could have been the worst. So I'm going to save this one for the worst, but it's a good one. And but for my best, I'm going to go with, I don't know if you saw this, Pops, but a hog made some huge news over the weekend on the diamond, and it wasn't Dave Van Horn's baseball team. It was a sophomore on the softball team. Danielle Gibson over the weekend hit for the home run cycle, which is a single home run, a 2-run home run, a 3-run home run, and a grand slam all in one game. And
wow,
she not only did it all in one game, becoming the 7th player in NCAA history to ever do this, she did it all in just 4 innings, her first 4 at-bats.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Wow.
So at first, her record wasn't as impressive because it was like, 7 people have done it. It's not like she's the first person to ever do it. But she did it in 4 innings, which is the first person to ever do that. And she would have maybe had a chance at breaking more records, but the game got called after her grand slam in the 4th inning because they run-ruled the team. So
wow. Wow.
So
That a girl, Danielle. Way to go.
impressive. And now I understand like some of it's luck. She can't control who gets on base and what, but I mean, she came up to the plate 4 times, hit that thing out of the park and got the home run cycle. By the way, nobody in MLB history's ever hit for the home run cycle. So hell of a weekend for the sophomore Danielle Gibson over in Bogle Park in Fayetteville. So
wow.
Good for her.
Yeah, well done.
that's what I'm going to go with my best of the week. Pops, what do you got for your best of the week?
Well, my best, I mean, I kind of gave it away a little earlier, but I like that Green Book, a movie I liked, won the Academy Awards. I mean, I liked the movie. I thoroughly enjoyed the movie, and I'm glad it won. That was
First time that's happened in the history of the podcast, right?
Well, history of the podcast,
maybe. Yeah. Actually, you're right. It is.
It is funny, though. Like, I watched the Oscars kind of to see what movies I didn't watch and should have seen, but it is fun when, like, they do the nominations for Best Picture, and there's a movie like Green Book pops up, and it's something you enjoyed, and then when you're like, hell yeah, you know, it feels like, it feels good.
You kind of share that win. You kind of get to share that win with John Fairley. So.
Right.
Yeah, we all won, John. So, LJ, what do you got for your best of the week?
Well, I was at a middle school and high school and elementary school dance competition, and I realized a good money-making venture, which is always a good thing.
Oh, here we go.
They need somebody to cut their music for them and edit their music because they're just stilted and awful. So it hadn't worked out for me yet, but I'm about to make just bukus of money. That's all I got to say is if you're a dance company, I'll work for cheap. Just if you listen and run a dance company, which I'm sure is probably not very many people, but I'll edit your music right now. I'll get it back to you in half an hour and it'll be better than anything you could do. So yeah.
All right.
Making the money.
I like it.
The money-making train, I'm going to jump on that with you, LJ, if I can. Just I'm going to get a side ride. You do all the work, and I'll just kind of cash in with you.
You be my PR guy.
Yeah. Speaking of music, that actually transitions well to my worst of the week. And I don't know if you guys saw this over the weekend, but it's been a bad so far. 2019 hasn't been great for the rapper Ja Rule. I don't know. You probably remember he was involved in some of the Fyre Fest stuff. And this weekend he was in Milwaukee, and they were gonna do a halftime show at the Bucks game. And the show they were doing 90s night, so that's why they brought Ja Rule out there. And he started out real weird.
He's a 2000s artist, right? His first album came out in 99 or something like that.
Yeah, he's more of a 2000s artist, but that first album came out in 99. And he even said they were doing 90s night. They invited me. I mean, I guess I'm really a 2000s rapper, but they wanted to bring me out. So whatever. So it already had a weird start. Like, it was like, okay, that's a weird way to go. And then I don't know. There's a video going around of him saying like, "Are you ready?" And like, then he like waits to hear a response, and the crowd is deadly quiet. And I think he was supposed to hear. It turns out there was like a production problem, and there was supposed to be a sound play over the speakers, and it just didn't play. But it was a terrible look for old Ja. He says, "Are you ready?" And it's needles. I mean, you can't hear anything out there. And then he goes, "I guess not." And then, so they finally, it takes a while, but they finally get things going. And then about 3.5 minutes left of the halftime show, Ja Rule is still in mid-song. And our boy, Dad, the Greek freak comes out. Giannis Antetokounmpo comes out and starts shooting warm-up shots over at the other court. Wow. Yeah, they had to turn the lights on so Giannis can see because he's doing warm-up while Ja Rule is performing at halftime. Oh, and then you probably didn't think there's any way this could get any better, but it does. It gets better. On Twitter, the Timberwolves they're notorious. Whoever runs their Twitter account does pretty well. I mean, they miss every now and then, but they do pretty well with the different jokes and stuff. And they made a little joke on Ja Rule and tweeted a picture of him and said, if you remember after Fyre Fest came out, Ja Rule there was like a quote going around where he was like, "I too was scammed and bamboozled and hoodwinked," and all this stuff, and basically said it wasn't him, he wasn't the bad guy. And the Timberwolves tweeted a picture of Ja Rule in the Bucks jersey performing at halftime, and they said, I think they were the other team playing, and they said, "We too were hustled, scammed, bamboozled, hoodwinked, and led astray," and making a joke about Ja Rule. And Ja Rule did not take that well. He then went on his decided to quote the tweet, and he, I guess, has cursed the Timberwolves. I didn't realize he had the power to do this, but he tweeted back and said, "You just jinx yourself talking to the God," in all caps, this way. "You're cursed now," in all caps. You won't win a championship for the next 30 years. And Karl Anthony Town is leaving. Apologize and I'll lift the curse. Kiss of death. So Ja Rule is on one. I don't know what's going on with Ja Rule, but he is just on one.
Boy, but what
Sounds
happens?
like the Streisand effect is coming.
What happens if the Bucks don't win for like 26 years? Like, then they have to call old ass Ja Rule up.
Like, Ja, we're sorry, Ja.
Oh God.
It was just the story. First, it came out just the clip of him doing that "Are you ready?" thing came out, and it was like, that's funny. And then the Giannis thing came out. You're like, man, it's even better. And then the Timberwolves and the tweet and the cursing and all that comes out. And it was just, whew, it just kept getting. Saturday night was the story that kept on giving. Pops, what do you got for your worst of the week?
Well, I saw this Sunday morning, and then LJ brought it up. But my man, the first album I ever bought was Frampton Comes Alive, Peter Frampton. And
I can still see the album
love him
cover.
as an artist. Oh, man, I still listen to it probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 times a year. Just put it on and listen to it. It's a great album. And he's got, and I don't know that I can, it's inclusion body mycetes. I don't know how you pronounce that. IBM is what they call it. And it is a degenerative, IBM is the acronym, obviously. But it's a degenerative muscle disease, and he will eventually lose control of his fingers and hands, which for a guitar player is devastating, obviously. So, now he's putting on a concert. I think this truly won't be like some of the others you see. This will probably be his last
a farewell tour.
Yep.
And a farewell tour. This is I did learn this disease usually develops after age 50. There's only 3.5 cases per 100,000 people, so it is very rare.
Wow.
Men get it 3 times more often than women, and most people will need daily assistance within 15 years of contracting the disease. So, as he said, and I heard him say on a Sunday, I think it was that channel or the CBS this morning on Sunday. And he said, it's not life-threatening, it is life-changing. And he was pretty upbeat about it, pretty cool, it made me feel good, but it is just sad to see
a legend, someone you've grown up with. I mean,
a legend to me, certainly. Yeah, that I grew up with.
Yeah.
And to see him, we all get old. We're not getting any younger, and it's tough. So that was my worst, to see Frampton.
Yeah,
struggling a little bit.
And we were talking kind of before we recorded, and LJ was talking about one sucks that didn't get to see Frampton live. And I guess, like you said, you still can, but as LJ mentioned, this is a legitimate farewell tour. I mean, getting tickets to this is going to be really tough. I mean, it's just it's tough. It's tough news, and it does suck. I'm not as big of a Frampton guy as you, but I just know. You throw Frampton on, and it's a road trip with Frampton's a good one. Yep. So
for sure,
it's a good listen.
For sure.
Good listen.
For
LJ,
sure.
what do you got for your worst this week?
Well, I was at a dance competition, and so that was
okay. Is that it? Stop it! Right. Wait, I've seen the boy Kevin. He's got some wiggle. You've seen him dance,
no.
right?
I was not dancing. Wait a second.
let's get this clear.
No. It was I put in 20 hours over the course of 30 hours, just watching middle schoolers dance. It was a long day. So yeah, that's all I got. That was it.
It wasn't LJ busting the breakdance moves out there.
My best is now everybody listening to the podcast is imagining me trying to boogie. So that's my new best.
Hey,
we might could find a video, Kevin. He got
a little wiggle. If you get a little of that wiggle juice in him, he's got a little wiggle.
Wiggle juice does help.
It helps us all.
No doubt about it.
I'm sure you've heard plenty of takes at this point on a lot of this stuff, but last weekend, and we talked about it as we went out last week as we were recording, LJ, but me and Dad were pumped to watch the North Carolina Duke game last Wednesday, and tickets were going through the roof. They were apparently like costing as much as some of the Super Bowl tickets, and Barack Obama was in the house. I mean, it was a star-studded event, and a lot of that,
Spike Lee was in the house,
and a lot of that's due to Duke. UNC's a big rivalry, one of the best in college sports, maybe all of sports. But a big part of that was Zion Williamson, who's made a huge name for himself and is a star in himself in his own right. And then 30 seconds into it, He is inadvertently just runs around, and as you've seen a million times now, just blows through his Paul George 2s or whatever he was wearing. He was wearing some Paul George Nikes.
Paul George 2.5.
I've honestly never seen someone just blow through a shoe like that. I later saw some stuff on Twitter of different, like Manu Ginobili kind of did something similar, and some other guys have, but just blew through a shoe and then hurt his knee and then did not return to the game. So the guy everyone's paying all this money for didn't return to the game, which this all led a huge topic on Twitter and everywhere else all over the internet. And for the next week, really, is the whole amateurism and college athletes not getting paid, because clearly with the whole storyline leading up to the game was how much tickets cost and how many people wanted to go and how this was a big event. Well, I mean, it's pretty clear. You know how much, LJ, can you tell us how much Zion Williamson is getting paid?
I mean, well, it depends. It depends on who the money man for the team is, but allegedly $0.
Allegedly, yeah.
Allegedly.
There may or may not have been someone dropping a bag off at his mother's house, but yeah. So the whole thing came up about, one, should college athletes get paid, and then the second big thing was, why is Zion Williamson even playing? He should just be sitting out. There's no reason for him to play for Duke. He's already got his draft stock up #1. So I just want to, I'll go over to Dad first, because I know Dad was watching that game we were texting before the game. We were pumped to watch it, and then that happened 30 seconds in.
Very excited.
What were your thoughts on the injury and then moving forward for Zion?
Well, my first thought on the shoe blowing out was, I bet Nike's sphincter muscle is tight right now.
Oh, man, that was a thing on Twitter. I saw that all over the place.
Oh, we've mentioned him a few times on the
bring
pod.
Back Starberries.
Yeah, we mentioned him on the pod before, but Darren Ravel, who's all into sports business, went on a Nike rampage where he was talking about how this will affect stocks and this will do this and this will do that. Mm-hmm. He went super sports nerd on us and started talking about Nike. But you're right. Their
stock did go down like over a percentage point, the next day.
It's a bad look. The game that everyone's watching, it was the Super Bowl of college basketball so far this year, and 30 seconds in, he blows through a shoe. Yep. But yeah, go ahead, Dad.
Well, and what I think is interesting, so he was wearing a Paul George, the PG 2.5, Paul George brand shoe. Or,
his latest, yes.
Paul George, whatever, namesake. They do have a 3.0 out now, by the way, which you might want to try. But apparently, this 2.5 is made of lighter construction. There's something called Strobel. It's called Strobel construction, which allows a sock-like feel with plenty of flex by using a cloth. That's the key word, a cloth connection to stitch the upper to the midsole. So I guess apparently some shoes have a stronger than cloth, maybe a plastic or even a riveted type attaching mechanism to get the upper on the midsole. And they talked about Paul George is 6'9", 220.
Yeah. How
Zion
big is he?
Williamson is 6'7", 285. And if you noticed on the move that he did, I mean, he completely stopped. So all 285 pounds of his was stressing on that shoe, and it just gave way.
Well, yeah, Paul George
might need a different brand of shoe.
Paul George and Zion Williamson both play a completely different style of basketball. Paul George is a very smooth game, and Zion is just a force of nature. I mean, he's just a beast.
Right. So they were saying he might want to try some different shoes, but now
I don't think they make a shoe though that for a 285
the big truck.
The left tackle that also can jump higher than Michael Jordan. I mean, they don't make that.
He needs to call Gronk's brace man.
But so here's my thought though. So Zion probably is too big for the shoe. He needs a different shoe, maybe steel toe boots. But
Starberries, baby.
So in the last year, in the 2017, 2018, the first round pick, I was reading made $5.8 million. I guess that was DeAndre Ayton.
In the first year,
5.8, and then was going to make in the first year was going to make 6.9 in the second year. So I mean, pretty good. That first salary even is pretty good. And Zion Williamson is obviously in line for monster money, completely monster money. But you know what? I hate to say this but he needs to just not play. I mean, he's not getting paid. He is the bar none number one pick in the draft. He is for sure going to make about $6 million if he gets to the NBA draft. Why play again? And I want to see the kid play. There's no doubt about it. And there's nothing like college basketball. It'll put a whole damper on the year for me personally. But if I am Zion Williamson or his dad, I would have to strongly consider you're not playing again. It's just not worth it.
Well, yeah. So my response to that is I kind of have a two-headed response. And one of it is, some of the people who were coming out after that injury and saying he shouldn't have played all this year, he should have sat out. That I think that's ludicrous, because if you remember coming into the year, if you kept up with Zion Williamson in high school at all, like he was actually the number 2 or 3 recruit coming in to the season. And a lot of people, if his highlights in South Carolina looked like, yeah, it was insane. He was dunking all over people, but it looked like the level of competition he was playing against. Like a lot of people were like, is he just a highlight reel or is he actually a good basketball player? Many people even were saying RJ Barrett is the number 1 overall pick and Zion Williamson's maybe 4 or 5. And then Zion Williamson came out at Duke and completely showed everyone he is a stud. He can do it all.
He is,
and has vaulted himself not only to a first-round pick and a lottery pick, but now he's like being called the surest lock maybe since Anthony Davis or even Durant Oden days. I mean, he's just a lock now. And people are saying even if he would have tore his ACL, he's still the number 1 overall pick. That wasn't the case before he started playing at Duke. So I do think there was reason for him to dress out and play at Duke. Now, I do understand a little bit, Pops, now that he's solidified himself as the number 1 prospect. I understand maybe shutting it down, but you got to think about it. And this is kind of where I found myself is he is, and someone told me I am a Duke fan. I watch Duke and root for Duke. And so there could be some skew to this because obviously I want to see the best player. But even as a fan, like you said, Pops, I want to see Zion play as much as possible. But he's 18 years old. He's gonna be hooping regardless of whether it's at Duke or it's at the 24-hour fitness gym or it's at Rucker Park. I mean, he's going to be playing basketball regardless. Dude just loves – Charles Barkley even said it. He was like, we're basketball players. This is what we do. He's going to find somewhere to play basketball. So if you're going to do that, you might as well do it against the top competition in the nation instead of going to the 24-hour fitness and playing against – like, what if he shows up and plays a game where me, you, and LJ are playing? We're way more likely to accidentally set a screen or let him step on our ankle or whatever than if he's playing against North Carolina. And then on top of that, he's playing with one of, if not the greatest basketball coach in alive right now, and that's Coach K, who's teaching him basketball. And then probably the best trainers and best equipment. I know that the equipment failed him Wednesday night last week, but Duke's probably giving them just as good equipment. If you can't get paid, then might as well get the best equipment. Plus, and then the last part is, and I know this sometimes gets overhyped, but there is something to the experience. And then at Duke, and if you win at Duke, and he's got there's so many former pros and pros in the NBA that went to Duke, and if he can bring a championship and do that, there is a memory to that you can't get if you sit out the rest of this year and go number 1 overall. I just think my final thought was he's going to play either way, so you might as well do it at Duke against the best players. And as we mentioned, there may or may not be a bag being dropped off at Dad's front porch or at Mom's front porch. So, LJ, did you have any major thoughts from the Zion thing?
Man, I mean, I kind of want to echo what you guys are both saying a little bit in that, the quickest way to start this conversation about how players should get paid is if the best player is just sitting down because he don't want to get hurt before he gets paid. I mean, I think that'll start that conversation up real quick. But I think the chances of him doing that is just like you said, Kevin. He's a ball player. I mean, you can't tell a ball player not to play ball. I mean, it's just he's not going to do it. So the rules are messed up, and you can't fault him for just playing along so he can do the thing he's always loved to do. So. And
football, and it's a little different.
I hope y'all are both right.
And football and basketball are different, whereas I don't have any problem with a guy sitting out in football for bowl season. I mean, it does suck, but I get it. Like, because we saw what happened with Jalen Smith when he ruined his knee and went from maybe top 3 pick to a second rounder. But basketball and football are just, they're different animals. I mean, there's a chance that Zion Williams get hurt, but there's a chance that his shoe blows out while working out, even if it wasn't basketball. He could have been just doing a drill. I mean, it's not where he's getting killed and getting hit and there's a full contact sport like football. It's a different animal. And I think the real question should be not Zion sitting or not. We got to find a way to, I don't know, people smarter than me have tried to figure this out. And I don't know the best way to do it as far as paying athletes, because you can't pay the guy at Arkansas State University the same thing you're paying Zion Williamson. So do you open it up like pros and have like boosters can pay anybody anything and it's like free agency? Maybe. Do you have it where,
man, the answer is obvious to me. Just let them take endorsement deals. That's all you got to do.
That's what I keep coming back to, and what I don't understand is if Zion Williamson can go down to the Riley car dealership and on a Saturday say, I'm going to go sign autographs, and they're willing to pay him, and people are willing to pay him for the autographs, I don't see why he's only benefiting off himself. If I'm willing to go pay Zion Williamson for his autograph, I don't see why he shouldn't be able to. And that's how I think that's the best way of how you police it is if John, like you would say, maybe the guy at Murray State shouldn't be paid the same as Zion Williamson. Well, if John Morant has that big of a following, and Dad, you talked about him last week a little. If people want to pay him, then let them pay him. I don't understand that, and I guess it gets down to the Alabamas of the world will pay the most in football, and then Dukes will pay the most in basketball. But we already see the same teams every year at number one and number. Like, it's not that different. We see Clemson, Alabama every year in football, and Duke's always in the running for a 1 seed. So I don't know. I don't know the best way to do it. I do think one solution that should come soon is let the guys go straight out of high school if they want to. I mean, Zion Williamson, if he wanted to, he could have went. I know if the rule was changed, he could have went straight out of high school to the NBA, and he probably would have been drafted 5th or 6th overall. And now he'll probably be drafted number 1. And as Dad mentioned, that's a difference of over the course of 4 years. I think that's a difference of about $8 million. So it is behooving him to go to Duke this year, at least so far.
Well, but you can make up that $8 million on sponsorship deals too.
Right.
I mean, that's not that big of a difference.
So
when it comes down to it.
Well, now, Kevin, you alluded to it, right? I think they are. Isn't Silver really looking at going ahead and removing that 1 year, one and done?
He's mentioned it, and it's definitely been in the conversation between the NBA and the NBAPA, and then they're trying to talk with it because it's the NCAA gets a lot of crap, but it's kind of an NBA rule too. That's throwing the NCAA. The NCAA should them not paying athletes is on them, and them the way they profit off all of this is amazing in their own right. How they found a way to get this to work for them. But the NBA is the one that instituted you can't come straight out of high school.
But they did that for the NCAA. They didn't do that for the NBA, though.
Yeah.
That's a rule for March Madness. That's why that rule exists, is to have
right.
the best talent in
and
that.
I think it had unintended consequences, as we've mentioned on the show before. I think it almost, I would rather, if you can go pro, and if you can't, go to college and spend 2 or 3 years getting your game ready, and then we can kind of get to know the players on our teams a little bit, because it's one and done. They're here, they're gone. I mean, is Zion Williamson really going to be a Duke alum?
Yeah, well, that's what
when he went there
Kyrie
for
Irving has talked about, the Duke brotherhood and the Duke love and all this stuff. It's like, well, I get it, but you were there for 6 months. You were there for a semester. Yeah. Really. Yeah. So it is a little it's different than Christian Laettner and Grant Hill and some of the other guys that were there for years on years.
And the other thing is, like, what makes March Madness fun to me, and it might be different from you guys, but it's not seeing the best talent, but it's seeing the crazy upsets, and it's seeing the wild things happen. And those still happen. If they maybe even happen more if you say, Zion Williamson, you go do what you do at whatever level. And
you say the unintended consequences, and just to bring up before we bounce off this subject is the NBA does benefit from this rule also, where there was a lot of guys, and they're just for all the Kobe's out there and T-Max and LeBrons, the guys that came straight out of high school and were great. There's usually a Kwame Brown, or we've mentioned before, a Sebastian Telfair. Yeah, those guys that don't end up making it. In the NBA, it does help the NBA to have, like, it's almost like their minor league where they can send you and they can see, because like we talked about with Zion, now that he's actually played a year at Duke against some of the top competition, you go, oh, okay, maybe he should be the number 1 overall pick, not RJ Barrett. RJ Barrett maybe should be the 3rd overall pick. So it's another year for them to scout guys against top.
They have a D League. They have Europe. I mean, why
they have that G League
in a place where you can't get paid?
Well, that's a good question. Because the guys aren't going to go straight to what they're going to do. If you draft someone straight out of high school, he's going to get a roster spot. I mean, you're not putting him to the G League if you take him top 4 overall. You're just not.
I mean, you're probably right, but that's a problem for them. You know, that's not that big of a problem. That's a small problem.
They should go back. They should go
out of high school. He's worth taking. And
they should go to the college baseball rule to where a guy can come straight out of high school if they want to, and if they choose to, then okay, cool. If you're good enough to get drafted, by all means, go get drafted. But if you go play college sports, then you have to play whatever it is. I think 2 or 3 years. Like make them make the decision, but at least give them the option. Yeah. Give them the option. If someone's willing to draft you, whether it's the 2nd round, 1st round, whatever, if someone's willing to draft you and you're willing to give up college, by all means, go make your money. I mean, I don't see why not. But if you're going to go college, make them stay for 2 years, and then I think you get both benefits to it. So we'll see. I don't know. It gets talked about and never changes. But I personally, as a fan of just basketball and Duke, I would love to see Zion Williamson play the rest of the year, because it's just he's freaking fun to watch. But we'll see what ends up happening there. I think they said that the agent said, or the team has said that he's day to day, which, I mean, aren't we all a little day to day? I was day to day coming into this podcast. I wasn't sure, it just depends. It just depends how I'm feeling this morning. So moving on a little bit, and this is a story that the NBA was not happy has come back up recently, and this was the Tim Donaghy story popped back up. For anyone that doesn't remember, Tim Donaghy was the ref back in 2007 and 8, was accused, and then it depends how it comes out. It depends how you word it. He was fixing games, and there were games that he was gambling on. He was a referee that was betting on the games he was reffing on and then winning at a high clip. And later it came out, and it kind of got blown out where the NBA, someone reported that the FBI was investigated and that they found it. And the NBA said they investigated it and they did their own internal investigation. They didn't find anything I'm saying here. If y'all have a correction or something, just spit it out. But the NBA kind of said,
I think you're right.
They investigated it, and they decided that they only found that he fixed one game. There's only one game where they could find proof that the calls that he made changed the outcome of the game to fix the spread or to hit the spread. So ESPN, the magazine, Scott Eden did this huge deep dive back into it 10 years later and interviewed like guys he had gambled with, the people that were involved, friends that were involved, his ex-wife, the guy who was leading the FBI investigation, and opened up. And I mean, it blew my mind kind of, one, how to see how it all started, how it all happened. And then two, how the NBA was able to kind of to narrate the story and control this story. It was mind blowing.
Yeah.
I guess we'll just start with how the NBA made it sound like at the beginning, they made it sound like Tim Donaghy was just a rogue ref who had a gambling problem and got into this. And then he started maybe fixing some games. So it wasn't a NBA because the scandal's huge because it makes you think, well, if one guy could have done this, could multiple people be fixing games? How many games are fixed?
Right.
And the NBA made it sound like it was just him. And then he got involved with this which I was reading the one guy he got involved with, that because Donaghy and a friend were gambling, but they were gambling smaller amounts until this bigger bookie realized, oh, wait, these guys must have some kind of fix because they only bet thousands of dollars every now and then, but every time they do, they win some money. So let's see what they're doing. And then realize, oh, it's every game this dude's officiating is the games they win on. And the guy that got involved in it was a guy named James Jimmy Baba the Sheep. 3 different nicknames, Bautista. One, I just want to say, a guy with 3 different nicknames, I don't think you could trust him. I don't think you could trust that guy. But he got involved and they started betting more money. Donaghy, basically, they had a deal where Donaghy would get $2,000 on any game that he was reffing covered. If the game didn't cover, then he would get nothing, but he wouldn't lose any money. So basically, it was a win-win for Donaghy, and Bautista would just do his own thing. He would bet up to about $1 million of his investors' money in each of Donaghy's game. And then what was interesting is, so the FBI came out, they investigated, they found him, and where this article got to, and I had no idea about this, and Dad, maybe you remember, I was a little younger, so I don't know for sure, but the FBI was getting ready to get Donaghy on a wiretap, and really, because Donaghy started spewing out saying, I'm not the only ref doing this, multiple people are doing this.
I remember that.
This is a corrupt system, and the FBI was going to get him to wear a wiretap and really get to the bottom of this. And then all of a sudden, about a month after the FBI notified the NBA that they were doing this investigation, all of a sudden the story leaks out to the New York Times, or was it the New York Post? I think it was New York Times leaked the story out, and they reported it. And then at that point, now the FBI's cover's blown. They can't do the wiretap. No one's going to talk to Donaghy.
Right.
I mean, did the NBA cover up something much bigger? Is it possible, you think, Dad?
I think it's possible. Yeah, I think it's possible because that would look horrible on the NBA. So they wanted that story to die and go away, and they cannot be happy about it coming back up again.
Well, and
especially because the NBA has totally embraced gambling.
Well,
now,
that's what
they have totally.
So last year, May 14th, the U.S. Supreme Court struck down a 1992 federal law that had forbidden states from legalizing sports gambling. And so now you've seen like New Jersey's done a few states now have legalized gambling. It's not just in Vegas. And I think this story coming out now is such a huge. Coming back up and resurfacing is so huge because, and like you said, Dad, NBA is one of the forefront of the big 4 pro sports that have said, oh, we're all about it. Let's do more gambling. MGM is going to be the official partner of the NBA and all this stuff. But the more there's gambling, the more it makes you think not only can a ref, but now like in football, what about the center? What if the center has a little bit of money?
Well, so what I was going to say is, that it might not just, if you want to go conspiracy Kevin, could they cover this up? Could the NBA cover something up? Absolutely. Would they have had willing help? any sports league in the world wants to kill the idea of refs fixing games immediately because it can be done in basketball.
Yep.
It can be done anywhere.
Because the money that Donaghy was making
thing,
and these people are making, I mean, it's more than what they're making as a ref, right? So
yeah. Well, and the other thing worth mentioning is that if you believe in NBA conspiracies at all, then you know that David Stern was a god at covering things up. I mean, you look at like the Michael Jordan stuff that potentially could have been this insane conspiracy that he went to go play basketball to go deal with, whatever suspension they didn't want him to have.
The secret suspension,
As soon as Adam Silver takes over, the NBA has the biggest controversy they might have ever had.
With the Sterling thing at the Clippers,
Stern was in charge. Yep. When David Stern was in charge, it might have just gotten swept under the rug and nobody would have ever known. So, I'm not saying that it definitely happened, but, could it? Absolutely. There's no question in my mind they could have covered that up.
Well, yeah. Your question is, would other sports leagues help perhaps the NBA cover this up? Is that kind of
I'm
what
saying
your question was?
They would.
And I think if that was your question, and I think you alluded to it, LJ, I think abso-freaking-lutely, because the integrity of the game is why are we interested in it? Because we think we can bet based on our knowledge of the game, and this linebacker's hurt, or this guy's got a foot injury, or this matchup really works well between Milwaukee and Golden State, or whatever.
Yeah.
And now if you got a rogue ref in there,
hell, even Vegas wants this to be covered up. Even Vegas would not want the integrity of the bets to be lost.
Because they want people to keep gambling, and you're only going to gamble if you believe you have the chances are fair for you to win. It's not the fixing.
What was so crazy about what the NBA and David Stern did, and like LJ said, they got to hate this coming up. The NBA just hates this coming up. But the NBA afterward, and we mentioned this a little bit, they did their own review of Donaghy after all this came out. And what they did was they rewatched 17 games. And of those 17 games, they found that just one of the games appeared to be called to help a team covered, and that was the Pistons and someone else playing. I can't remember what the teams were, but they said only one of the 17 games, which, first off, the ESPN did the research, and why they did 17, I don't understand, because the FBI suggested that Donaghy, one, wagered on 4 years' worth of games before he got involved with the Sheep, Baba Batista or whatever. And then he also bet on the 60 plus games of the 2006-2007 season when he was involved with Batista. So the FBI is suggesting that he at least wagered on 180 different games that he reffed over the course of 5 years. But the NBA decided they would only watch 17. I don't know how they found that. And then
I think I have an idea why they
go ahead,
17.
Why is that?
Well, so I think that they probably watched one to see if they could spot him fixing the game. Saw nothing. Watched another. Saw nothing. They were like, oh, this is going to be so easy. Let's keep going. Got to number 17, and they were like, stop immediately. 1 in 17 is a lot better than what we're going to find if we keep going.
Well, and that's, if you go back, if you read the article on it, we'll post it in the show notes, but it's on ESPN.com and ESPN the magazine if you have a subscription. And it's a great article by Scott Eden. He did him and whoever was all involved, they did some serious research into this. But they went back and looked at, because what you do is if you look at 17 games, you can't really look at the blowouts either way, because obviously, and Donaghy even mentioned it in the article, he was like, if the game gets above 15 points, obviously I can't sway that. So it's just going to happen either whether it's in our favor or not. So ESPN looked at, out of 30 games that were competitive that Donaghy ref during the 06-07 season. And by competitive, I think they were saying within single digits. And they were, out of the 30 games that were competitive, they found that 23 of them covered the spread, and so it was like 23, 6 and 1 or something. So Donaghy had like a 77% percentage rate of getting right on the games that he said would cover and the games that he was reffing. So ESPN's research makes it sound like not only was he doing this at a higher clip than the NBA thinks, which I think is obvious, but that he was extremely good at reffing these games. And then it even talked about how Donaghy did it. He opened up and said that he would, and Dad, I thought this was really interesting. He would call a illegal defense early in the game on the team that he was betting against. So then he could dictate their defense the rest of the game. They would then quit playing so physical. And then if he calls it a real weird one, he calls it early. So it's not as obvious as calling one late in the game, but 2, it's setting up to where anything he calls is not as bad as that one. So he's setting the tone for how he can officiate the rest of the game. I mean, he was good at this. He was talented at it. And then the second thing, and LJ talked about this, and this is Stern possibly covering up and the NBA covering up. Eden tried to talk to a bunch of former refs, and basically Donaghy's name's like it's a black sheep. You don't want to mention it, and no one wants to mention it. I get that a little bit, but also it almost sounded like people were either afraid to discuss Donaghy or didn't want to. And I wonder, is it because he was a disgrace to referees, or is it because someone maybe who's paying you, David Stern in the NBA, is saying, hey, don't talk about Donaghy to anybody. And I would bet it's
betting you money. It's number 2.
And I just think this is something that's going to come up in all sports, and that's why LJ's 100% right that every sport would want to cover this up, because if a ref would do it, why wouldn't if someone comes up to, I think Bill Simmons mentions the long snapper in a football game. Obviously, they're not making near the money that the quarterback's making, so why wouldn't they? If someone said, we'll pay you $1 million to make sure this game gets screwed, here you go. Or maybe it's the holder, or maybe it's, there's ways this can happen. And it's just, as a fan, this is the worst thing, because now there's no game is near as fun to watch if the fix is in. Like wrestling, when you know what's going to happen, it's not as enjoyable as watching the Cowboys Broncos, where you don't know what's going to happen when you start that game off.
Yeah, right.
Well, I thought it was super interesting, and I haven't finished the article, but how they said, there was one faction that said, we want to get all the legaling, the gambling legal, so everything's up and up, and there's no chance for these kind of shenanigans. And the other side says, hey, the more money you get into gambling, the more money there is to make somebody go wrong.
Yeah, the more incentive, yeah.
I kind of tend to think more along the second line. So, and they have, like we said, protect the integrity of the game. Or are they going to go the way of wrestling? And I guess wrestling still is okay, but I haven't watched it in a long time and don't care to.
And the other thing on that article that was interesting is everyone that either figured out about Donaghy or Donaghy came clean to, none of them really ratted him out. Instead, they just saw dollar signs and they got in on it. Like everybody that figured out about it just was like, oh, well, because that's in our world, let's be honest, money talks. And these people, as much as they were like, oh, that's awful. Like the one guy, the friend that he opened up to, he opened up to him in his suite, and the guy said he sat there and listened to the whole thing, and then after he got done, he was like, "So how can I get into it?" It wasn't this is terrible. What are you doing? It was okay. This sounds like you got straight up cash in the bank. I guess this is easy money, and it was that. Money talks, and it's scary how much this either could or is already involved in sports. And
that's the other thing.
How did they catch him? How did they catch the guy?
I'm not sure.
If you read in the article, they got Scala, the FBI, the main investigator, was actually investigating different parts of the FBI are all put on to different like mob families. And so he was watching the Gambino family in New Jersey. I don't really know what that family is, but basically they're monitoring them at all times, kind of like what you've seen on the Netflix shows where they're just watching them, waiting for them to slip up or something, a way they can get them with RICO or whatever it is. And someone suggested, so they got a tip that someone suggested, hey, this referee is fixing games, and some of this money's going back to these makers, and it's somehow tied to Gambino money. And so really it wasn't big enough for him to look, because it was like, oh, this is small money. It won't even really hurt the Gambinos at all, the family that he's supposed to be watching. But he was like, oh, but it is a huge deal. And they started looking into it and started watching the Donaghy games, and he claims it was so obvious. And the first reason he said he started diving into it was because when they brought it up to the NBA, the reason they were going to do all the wiretapping and stuff is because when they brought it up to the NBA a month before it got leaked out to the New York Times, the NBA said it's impossible for something of this magnitude to be done. And Scala said, as soon as someone tells you it's impossible, that means they're full of shit. And so that's when he went into it, and that's when they were going to wiretap it, because he was like, there's more going on, because he said it was clear to him that the games Donaghy was reffing, he was fixing. There would be fouls called late in games and whatnot. And so that's how this FBI guy caught him. And once they put him into a corner, he just started spewing out and giving everything. And it was funny. There was two sides to the story. Apparently, Donaghy claims that Bautista blackmailed him and said, you don't want the NBA to figure out what you've been up to with these small bets. So either get involved with me and make me money, or I'm going to tell everyone. And then Bautista claims that Donaghy reached out to him to try to make bigger money. So I don't know who's right and who's wrong, but a lot of people made a lot of money off of it. It was really interesting, LJ. A lot of the money that got made by two of the other guys that were partners with Bautista now own like the biggest share of all the Planet Fitnesses in the Northwest and Midwest. And like all the Chicago Planet Fitnesses are owned by these guys. And
wow.
So like a lot of these guys that made the money off, read that article. It mentions it later. Like they mention kind of where that money went to. And a lot of the people that made money off this didn't get caught and are still, they're not doing the same thing, obviously, but they're putting that money to some other use.
Sounds like I'm putting money in their pocket right now. Yeah. I go to Planet Fitness in Chicago. So
Well, yeah, but they use dirty
Yeah.
money to go into legitimate
Yeah,
business.
it's legit
is
now,
what-
but
what
it was
they
all
did,
dirty,
so-
and there was a lot
the
of
smart
money
thing to
being
do.
made on this, and it's wild. It really is. It's a long read from ESPN the magazine, but Scott Eden and all the team that worked on it. I mean, it for someone like me who just I know the Donaghy name and I knew of it and knew what had happened, but kind of didn't keep going because one, I didn't keep going because I was a little younger, and two, the NBA did a fantastic job of controlling the story and making it sound like it was just Donaghy. And then this story opens it up to realize, oh wow, there might be way more to this that we never even scratched the surface to, but we couldn't get to because the story got leaked out. It's just it's wild. It really is. What me and Dad did I don't know if anyone if you stuck around for all of it. We nerded out and did a lot of NBA cap room and max cap and super max. And did you say John had a question about some of the NBA stuff that we did?
So I was editing and I just lost interest completely. So I just let it fly by me when you guys were talking about cap room and stuff like that because the NBA is so complicated and weird. And then John Payne, longtime listener of the podcast, mentioned on our Facebook.
Shout out Dr. John.
Yeah, he's been on the show. Yeah. He asked why the salary cap is so weird because like they've got a salary cap, right? So why do they need these maxes and super maxes? And then like the luxury taxes,
the mid-level exclusion.
And then also he asked why
there's a lot of
why it's decided because I don't really remember what you guys said because I didn't care. But now I do. Now that he's asked, why it seems to be decided on relatively arbitrary things that aren't necessarily like I don't know. Do you know what I'm saying? Does that make sense to you? Does that question?
Well, not the second part. The first part, yes, but
well,
how
do you decide whether somebody is you can give them a supermax?
Well, so we mentioned that was all in last week's pod. And we're not going to go all the way deep into it, but like if you made an All NBA team one of the past 2 years, or if you've won an MVP one of the past 3 years, there's different awards that you have to win to become supermax eligible and max eligible.
These awards are not necessarily. I mean, they tend to go to great players, but they're not necessarily like it's voted on, and it's not necessarily like a fact that. I mean, right? I mean. Who decides the MVP?
No, you are either eligible for a supermax or you are not eligible. It's cut and dry.
You're right,
Kevin.
You have to make an All NBA team.
You have to have 4 years with the same team, All
so that's
NBA. You know, there's certain
subjective for sure.
Requirements.
So
no, it's not subjective.
My real question though is why doesn't the NBA use a hard cap? What's the deal with that?
And one that's a great question, John. And the reason that. And I don't have a cut and dry answer. I really don't. I tried to look up a little more to know. And what I found was basically what I kind of already thought. And it's the NBA instituted the bird rights rule a while back. And that was to keep star players. It's named after the great Larry Bird. And he stayed his whole career with the Celtics.
Yeah.
And it was to encourage star players to stay with the team they're at. So what the rule says is, if a guy's eligible for the max deal or whatever, like Larry Bird was, like, you know, LeBron is, or all these different guys, if they stay with their current team, because now that current team's tried to build around that player. So like the Cavaliers built around LeBron. So they want, and then LeBron comes up for a super max. Well, obviously that deal is for a lot of money. That's going to go put them over the cap. But if it's a guy that's that you have bird rights to, which means he's played for you the past 3 years, then you can go over the cap. So a lot of these guys kept their players and went over the cap with it. So then that's why people started going over the cap. Now, basically every team, besides like you'll see nowadays, you'll know because free agency is such a big deal in LJ. I know you're rolling your eyes, but like the Knicks have cap room or whatever. But most teams, almost, I would say 23 out of 30 teams on a given year are over the cap because they've given out a contract with bird rights. So I don't know why the NBA doesn't just do a hard cap. I know they do a little different on their luxury tax rules where the teams that don't go over the luxury tax, which is like the luxury tax is a certain number over the cap. So this is getting really confusing. Yeah, there's like, if you go over, that's one thing. But if you go over by this many million, then you hit the luxury tax.
So just to make it clear to the listeners, because I just read this, that the salary cap is $99 million.
Right.
Whereas the luxury tax limit is like $107 million. So if you're spending $106 million, you're over the salary cap, but you're not in that other range where you have a penalty. Like, why wouldn't the penalty be at $99 million? That's absurd to me.
There's probably a rhyme or reason, but I've tried to look through, and it was it gets so confusing. I think all collective bargaining you have to really try to get in and figure out to try to understand it. But the NBA is even more so. There's a lot of different stuff to it, and I'm not 100%. That's why I was saying, John, great question. Hopefully you can find someone smarter than us three to answer it, because I don't know the exact answer.
I did try to imagine what the difference would be with a hard cap, and I think that maybe the difference is less super teams. Does that seem like a reasonable answer to you guys, or is that not the case?
Well, yeah, maybe, because if you've got $100 million, right? You got $100 million you can pay, period, without all this bird rights and the Supermax and all that. You're right. So Steph Curry can only get whatever he can get. You know, if some team wants to give him 50% of their salary cap, well, I mean, they can, but they're going to have Steph Curry and nobody else, you know.
But the NBA also wanted to keep KD, Steph Curry.
So,
they wanted fans to not only become Steph Curry fans, they wanted them to become Warrior fans. So Steph Curry stays there for 10 years, then you become. Yeah. But that's now blown up in their face, like LJ's saying.
I think that's the thing, is like you can. I think that I don't know the weeds part of it, but I know that like if you look at like the two extremes of salary caps, where like baseball there's none and football there is a very strict salary cap. You see, football is just everybody's leaving their team all the time. Like there's so much turnover on teams that it's hard to be a fan of. Say, you know, it's hard to buy a Philip Lindsay jersey because in 3-4 years he might be on another team. In fact, it's probably
unless they're quarterbacks, unless they're quarterback, they're probably moving within 3 or 4 years. It seems like.
Whereas baseball players tend to stick around for a lot longer. But you know that you don't want it to feel like a pay to win sort of thing for the NBA, that the richest markets will guaranteed get the next championship. So I think maybe that's the reason for it, but I don't understand how it works. Where it
really bit the NBA in the butt, and the only reason I know this is from playing so much 2K and Madden, and this is the difference in how it works for the NBA and Madden, or in NFL, is where the NBA, if you have bird rights, so like if you're the Warriors and you had bird rights on Draymond Green, but you also wanted to get Kevin Durant, so signing either one of them is going to put them over the cap. So what they do, like say like right now, we're good, we have cap space. They give that money to Durant first. If they get Durant to sign, then it's good because he came from a different team. He's not bird rights, so they're good. But now they only have like $1 million left in the cap room. But it's Draymond Green who they have bird rights to. So as long as they sign Draymond Green second, they can go negative. So it's in order of who you sign. So you're playing with fire a little bit, but yeah, that's where teams like the Warriors ended up making super teams, is where they learned, one, they drafted guys on the right deals and things just worked out for them, but also they manipulated a little bit to where, okay, we'll get our outside free agents and then we'll sign our inside guys because we can go all into.
So does that mean that everybody that's like currently one of the Warrior superstars they're going to have bird rights on them for the foreseeable future, or like is there a reason that this team will eventually wither away?
They'll have to keep giving all of them supermax deals if they want to keep, because I think that's the Klay Thompson is up for a supermax. The Warriors can give him the supermax because they have the bird rights. They can keep going. But the way the luxury tax works is for like first time repeaters, you get this, repeat offenders, you get this. And then the more times you keep doing it, the more the percentage points go up. And it's like $1 for every dollar you go over, $2 for every dollar. And then all of a sudden it's like $10 for every dollar. And now the Warriors, as they keep doing this, they're going to go millions upon millions upon millions over the luxury tax, and they're repeated offenders. So they're going to have to owe a lot of money, and that money gets doled out to the rest of the NBA. So
the question, I guess, becomes what is the cost for an owner versus the benefit of having a 18-year dynasty, you know?
And that's why guys maybe would be willing to go to a bigger market, because maybe Giannis, Milwaukee's not willing to keep doing that because they don't make the same money that the Lakers are making, but the Lakers are like, we'll keep forking out because we're worth $6 billion or whatever they are. So and then that kills your small market teams, which then kills fandom in some of these other markets. So it's a double-edged sword, and I don't know if the NBA has the right answer. It doesn't seem like they do, because some of this is good with player movement because it keeps them relevant all the time. But LJ, you're onto something. There is some oversaturation with it. It does. It's like, God, this gets old every single year. Kyrie Irving's either happy or not happy, and LeBron may or may not leave. Like it's fun for a little bit, and this offseason is going to be all over ESPN and SportsCenter. It does seem like for the most part, fans are eating it up and the NBA is doing great. But at some point, when is enough and becomes too much? I think we might be headed in that direction.
The NFL can answer that question. I think we might be. Good 10 or so years of oversaturation will start to push against you. And, how long has the NFL Network been a thing? probably to now is probably about how long the NBA has got at this level of saturation of news coverage. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see that. Let's also make sure they can make sure the games aren't being fixed, because I don't know if we have that answer yet either. So it's fun. We'll see what goes on. And again, I'll say to anyone, that article, the Tim Donaghy article, is really good. We'll post it in the show notes if you want to try to read it. It's a long one. It is a doozy. I'll give you that, but it's good. It's worth it.
I got started and I did not finish.
Well, let's go. We haven't done this in a while because LJ wasn't in last week, and I don't know if me and Dad forgot or we were trying to hold out for you. I'm not really sure the answer there, but it seems like we hadn't done what we're listening to in a little bit. So let's get it back rolling. Pops, what do you? I have a feeling I know who you've been listening to, but what have you been listening to?
No, I know who I'm going to be listening to soon, which is going to be Peter Frampton, but that's not what I have been listening to. No. Interestingly enough, just kind of listening to my playlist, I really got on some Citizen Cope. Got into Sideways, the one he does with Santana and Sun's Gonna Rise. Those are just two of my very favorite songs, and they re-loop on my playlist a lot. So I don't know, I've kind of been into Citizen Cope lately. That's who I'm into.
What about you, El? What have you been listening to?
Well, we just opened Macbeth, and the way that we did it was filled with like dark hip hop and metal music. So, we used a lot of stuff like Coheed and Cambria and Lamb of God. I think John Payne will probably appreciate that we used Coheed and Cambria. But I guess the one that I want on the playlist is Big Sean. I've been listening to a lot of Big Sean, and there's a song Paradise that's just got this like just dark, awesome vibe.
That's a good song.
But like Big Sean, if you don't know Big Sean, he's like the most like normal sounding rapper. Like he doesn't seem to be the best at any one thing, but he is so solid. Like it's like Tycho's my first rapper, which sounds like an insult, but like I think he's really great. But
he's got an interesting sound and flow. Like I agree. I like Big Sean's sound. It's pretty good. Well, I'm gonna stick with the rap theme, and LJ, I know you'll like this. Finally, after I think the 10-year anniversary, it found its way onto streaming sites. Drake's "So Far Gone" mixtape. Finally, the full mixtape is now on Spotify and Apple Music and wherever you get your music. And man, I forgot just how good that freaking mixtape was. It is so
it's
good.
Amazing. It's really great. Yeah, I remember I was listening to that in Dad's house on Monroe all the time.
I can remember many a days where I'm sitting there playing Xbox and LJ's got "So Far Gone" playing, and then we get on the Madden together and LJ beats me, and then I get all pissed off. I mean, there's
those were the days.
Plenty of days in the summer where me and LJ are just jamming to "So Far Gone," probably playing NCAA, not Madden. I bet it was more NCAA.
Yeah, I was probably Bowling Green.
I remember.
It was fun. That came out. Not only was it fun just to listen back to it, but also like a trip down memory lane. It was some good stuff. So I was glad to see it finally get on. I don't really know why it took so long to get on streaming service. I think it had something to do with getting the rights from all the different producers that helped him on that.
Well, he also has a lot of beats that are just total straight rips from other songs. I mean, it'd be hard to even call them samples. So I would imagine that the rights to those songs probably cost as much as they. And
LJ, I probably should have looked this up, but I can't remember. I know me and you both digged it, but the outro on that mixtape with the piano.
Yeah.
Do you know where that piano is from or who that is?
Absolutely do. I absolutely know because I listened to this.
Please share, because that piano is so good.
The guy's name is Chili Gonzalez, and he's got a song called "The Tourist," which is just they stole that song and put it at the end of the mixtape and gave him no credit. So that actually is kind of a funny story. That Chili Gonzalez obviously felt a little dejected that he had gotten his music. Put that on the playlist, by the way. That's a good one. But all
right, I will.
But he was a bit dejected by getting his music stolen and put on this huge mixtape that was bigger than anything he's ever put out. And so Drake called him up and 8 years later or something like that to kind of apologize because Chili's been putting this in his live show talking about how bad it felt to get ripped off by Drake. And he ended up playing piano in Marvin's room. So, it kind of worked out for him in the end.
Oh, he's the piano, okay. Because man, that outro, it comes on and he's right. Drake totally just put someone else's piano for the outro, and it is beautiful. It sounds amazing, and it It's good music. That's cool to know that they ended up getting. I think I knew me and you had talked about that before. I didn't know for sure if you had an answer, and of course, LJ's just rattles off the answer right there. Oh, Chili Gonzalez, actually.
Yep.
You know,
I just made that all up. None of it's true.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. We wouldn't know, Kevin, but somebody might.
No. Actually, just to confirm it, I'll put he wrote this article about his experience with Drake, and I think that's worth reading. So we'll put that on the show notes too.
Cool. All right, I'm glad I asked the question.
Cool.
That was a cool little story time.
Me too.
Story time with L.
Me too.
All right, well, that will do it for another week of the JPP podcast. We appreciate everyone giving us a listen and continuing to listen with us if you have been. Make sure, if you haven't already, hit us up, subscribe to us on the Apple Podcast or Spotify or wherever you get your
Google,
podcast
subscribe to Just Press Play.
Yeah, and leave us a review if you're feeling a little froggish, and find us on Facebook or Twitter. We got our website at jpppod.com. We'll keep on putting some good stuff out. So,
well, and if you have questions or thoughts about our show, we try to respond. I mean, we do a poor job, but John Payne asked that question. I think this was a pretty good segment. So feel free to always ask us if you.
We don't only answer Dr. Payne. But anybody who has a question for us, we will give you. We will. I won't say we'll have the answer for you, but we will attempt.
We'll attempt.
We'll damn sure try to look it up.
And that's the best we can do. All right. Well, that'll do it for another week, guys. I will talk to you later. Peace out.
Peace.
Peace.